What is up, the Backlog Brawler fans? Here we are back at Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and we are going to discuss conditions. Here we're gonna have to break it up because there are lots of conditions that we have to discuss, but I've prepared a scenario for you guys as usual. And here, let me just brief you on what we have. There are some enemy ninjas here, and I've got some heroes. One's bathing in the waterfall, and I've set up some stuff to be able to demonstrate how the conditions work. Of course, we have Lahir here.
Lahir wishes to kill something.
Let's begin. So, triggers. We've discussed that in the previous video, so if you haven't watched that yet, I suggest you start from there. But if you're a master of triggers already, you know what they are, you know what they do. So here we discuss conditions. So my setup here is I created a trigger first, and as I advised, name your triggers so that you know the order in which they were created. So this start stuff, I created this first, so just some preliminary initialization of what I need to be able to show you guys the conditions. So we'll focus on this trigger that I created, conditions tutorial, and what's basically gonna happen is, let's just remove this condition first and let's test that. So this is what's gonna happen. Basically, enemy ninjas are gonna get spammed by elite samurai, and siege onagers are going to keep spawning if the conditions are met. So that's what's gonna happen. And you can see that I created two effects. Create object effects. One is a siege onager and one is creation of elite samurai, and I put this specific trigger on loop. Nothing too fancy, all good. So now we're gonna create a new condition so that it won't happen at the beginning when I start the game. I'm going to be discussing conditions from the bottom to the top, but the scope of this video is going to be from victory timer up to player defeated. So these conditions we're going to discuss. I'm going to leave the other conditions for another video. So if you're interested in that, watch that. I'm going to include them in a single playlist. So let's begin victory timer. So condition victory timer is basically, you have to choose your timer type. You can have Wonder, Relic, or King of the Hill timer. So what's important here is, for victory timers, you have to pay attention to your global victory tab here, and you have to have the right victory condition enabled. So for example, if we want to implement a Wonder timer, then you have to make sure that the Wonder victory is enabled via the global victory condition. And standard actually has this. If you can see the tooltip to the right, lower right, just above the map, it says standard victory conditions, relics, wonder, or conquest. So wonder victory is part of it, so I can demonstrate that. I don't have a wonder here, so let's create one. Let's just okay, here. This isn't a wonder, by the way. This is a monument, and I'll use that for later. But let's just plop a wonder here. So that gives me a wonder, and because we have the standard victory conditions set, then I'm eligible for a countdown for the wonder victory. So the other field is comparison. You have to choose one operator, and this influences how the condition is gonna work based on the quantity field here. So for example, if I say wonder timer equal, and then I type let's say 195, that means if the wonder timer hits 195 for player 1, that's me, then these effects will trigger. So let's test that out. Right, so here we have on the upper right the countdown, 198, 197. So when it hits 195, there you go. The trigger started, and notice that it stopped spawning units. That's because the condition was set to equal to 195 years. So once it went down to 194, the looping trigger that I created stopped. So it's working as expected with that current game. So you can also, of course, play around with the operators, and you can choose whatever you want. So I guess these are self-explanatory. These are relative to the quantity that you put here. And if you say inverse condition, this means that it just switches the logic backwards, which means for this instance, if I tick inverse condition here, that means that if the wonder timer is not equal to 195, then the effects will trigger. So I'll show you that. See, it's just 198 years, and you already got the action going on. But see, when it reaches 195, see, it stops spawning. But when it went to 194, it continued spawning samurai, right? So that's how it works. It's basically negation. So it should be simple enough. Let's carry on to another timer type, relic timer. So it's kind of the same with the wonder timer, only instead of wonders, it's gonna be for relics. So let me demonstrate that. So we have a monk here, we get the relic, we garrison that. I'm eligible for relic victory. And since we set the number of years to 195, that's going to be the trigger. And there you go. So once it's 194, since the operator's equals to, then it stops spawning stuff. Okay. Oh, and by the way, remember that for you to be able to trigger a relic victory, you have to have, I think, all relics under your command. So garrisoning just one relic, but it won't do unless it's the only relic in the map, which I made sure that it's the only relic in the map when I was setting this up. And next timer type is the King of the Hill timer. So important thing here is you have to go to your global victory, and you need to pick secondary game mode and select King of the Hill mode. Otherwise, that trigger's not gonna work. So the King of the Hill timer, let's do something else. Let's go with larger, for example. So if the King of the Hill timer is larger than, for example, 1, and I do have a monument, so if we test that, so yeah, since I have a monument here, that's not a wonder, that's a monument. The number of years is 500 plus years, but since I set it to greater than 1, and 500 is obviously greater than 1, so it's gonna spawn stuff. So you see, it's gonna keep spawning stuff as long as there's space, as long as there's no intersecting unit. But that's for another day, for when we discuss effects. But that's how the condition works. Okay, so that's victory timer. Pretty easy to understand. Oh, and by the way, if you change the source player, for example, to player 2, and we test that out. So you see, even if I have the monument, I'm the King of the Hill, so to speak, nothing's happening because I set the condition to trigger if it's for player 2. If player 2 is counting down for King of the Hill. Okay, so that's it for victory timer. Next is... oh, I want to leave this one for last. Okay, maybe not. Fine. Let's do this. So variable value. I already have a variable prepared, but whatever. So here's how it works. It's pretty much the same thing. There are operators you can use to compare a variable value with a quantity. So if you're familiar with the programming, a variable is simply something that stores a value. So let me just show you that. In the start stuff trigger, remember that we were working with the conditions tutorial trigger, but I'm gonna go to start stuff trigger. I'm gonna create a new effect here, and it's gonna be change variable. And by the way, before I worked on this, this text print was named variable 0. I just changed it, so you can change it actually to anything you want. So for example, you wanna cheap, fine. And then there are some operations for the variable, so you can set it to anything you want, or if it already has an existing value, then you can do some operations on it. But for now, we'll use set. Let's say set it to 10. It doesn't matter what the name is, it's just storage for a certain quantity. What happens here is, since my start stuff trigger doesn't have a condition, once I do the test, it's going to do the effect. So it's going to change the variable sheep then, but that doesn't really do anything yet that's visible. Just in the back end, you're just going to have a variable named sheep that has a value of 10. So how does that relate to our condition here? So you can select variable value as a condition, and you can select which variable you want to put in as a condition. And you can say, for example, since we set it at 10 at the start stuff trigger, let's say if this variable is larger than, let's say, 3, and it obviously is because I set it to 10 here at the start. So if the variable is larger than 3, then it's gonna do the trigger. So see, yep, carnage, yep, trigger that. So that was expected. It does give you a bit more flexibility because you can attach variables to certain happenings. Like for example, if you wanna, for example, store like maybe the number of units that you have, if it exceeds something, then you do a change variable effect, and then you can feed that in when you have another trigger. You can do a variable value condition. So sky's the limit, up to your imagination how you're gonna do it. And it also has this inverse condition, which is should be already familiar to you. So let's proceed with the next condition, which is units garrison. So this one might be a bit confusing because units garrison, right? So what this actually does is you choose a building that has the capability to garrison stuff. So for example, this monastery here, and then you set how many units or objects should be garrisoned there. So I set 1, for example, and do a test. So let's have the monk garrison the relic. And as you can see, there you go, trigger. And if I eject that, the trigger stops. Okay. units garrison, you can set the quantity, for example, to let's say let's build a castle. So castle, let's set a castle here maybe, and then let's get some units. We have some archers here. So if we change the units garrison, so you can reset this and set the object to the castle instead, and let's say garrison 2. Let's test that out. So if I garrison 1, nothing happens yet. If I garrison 2, there you go. It triggers stuff. And if I garrison 3, it still spawns. So something to note about that is it's not an equals to condition. It actually means minimum. So that means anything above this number will trigger the condition. Okay, so next condition we have is timer. This is the easiest one to explain. So this is in seconds. You just have to type how many seconds you want before the trigger triggers. So let's say we want 5. After 5 in-game seconds, it's gonna spawn death. Yes, that was 5 seconds. Yeah. Alright. So far so good. Next is technology state. Now, I'm gonna do a disclaimer and say technology state, researching tech and research technology. I feel there are some overlaps here, but if any of you think that I'm wrong, please let me know in the comment section. Definitely want to know about this. But technology state basically says you can choose a technology. So since we have this monastery already, so let's choose something from the monastery. Let's say fervor, and then if the technology state is one of these, it's gonna trigger the trigger. And if it's for which player, so player 1 is me. If fervor is done, it's gonna trigger, but that's gonna take too long. Let's say researching. So if I research fervor, if I have the process of researching fervor, there you go, the trigger happens. So let's take a look at the other triggers. I mean condition. Or rather, states. So done is pretty much self-explanatory. If you're done researching the tech, then that's a trigger. If it's queued, this is a bit confusing, but let me show you. This is interesting, by the way. So if I click fervor, nothing happens. It has to be queued. So let's say I research another technology and I queue it. That's the time it'll spawn. That's the time it'll trigger. And the other one is we have ready versus not ready. So we'll just demonstrate ready. Right, so immediately it did a trigger. Why? Because it's ready to be researched. That was pretty self-explanatory, but let me show you another thing. Let's change the tech to faith. So faith is a monastery technology that only occurs in the Imperial Age, but we are, in our settings, we are on Castle Age. So this technology shouldn't be available yet. And as you can see, nothing triggered because faith here, we need to be at Imperial Age. Oh, and this isn't, the ready state has nothing to do with the resources that you have. So, for example, let's set my gold to 0, starting gold, and let's set technology state of fervor to ready. So you'd think that well, let's just show you. So it's still triggered even though I don't have enough gold to research it. So ready doesn't mean that you have enough resources. Ready just means that you have all the prerequisite techs. Alright. I think so disabled is kind of special. Let's see, I'm Japanese. What's a tech the Japanese don't have? I guess Hindustanis. So let's test that out. It spawned. Oh, it spawned. Because Hindustanis is not a Japanese tech. You can find it in the tech tree. But let's find something that they do have. So Japanese obviously have fervor, so test that out. Yep, so as you can see, since it's not disabled, it didn't trigger the trigger. So that's what disabled means. And of course there is also the disable effect. So let me show you. I think there's a technology, there's a way you can disable technology, yeah. Okay, maybe we'll discuss that later. I'm not really sure at this point, but yeah. If it's disabled, if you can't research it, then that's gonna trigger the condition. Next is, oh, I'm gonna skip script call for now. I'll leave that for last because it's the most complicated, but definitely I will discuss that. Let's go to researching tech first. So this is the equivalent of technology state researching, and research technology is the equivalent of technology state done. Why they have these, I'm thinking maybe these were texts that I mean, these were conditions that existed before they sort of modified and included technology state. I don't know, but they seem redundant to me. I tested it, so yeah, let me know in the comment section if you know otherwise. The last condition is player defeated. So pretty self-explanatory. Sorry, this is not the last. I'll discuss script calls, but yeah. So let's set to player 3. If I defeat player 3, then this triggers. So who's player 3?
Player 3 wishes to kill something.
Yeah, let's beat the crap out of Lahir. Challenge you to a duel. DK indeed. So if player 3 dies, there we go. We spawn the army. Okay. That was pretty easy. But now let's go to the more difficult part. Condition list script call. Now this is gonna be be a bit more complicated, so bear with me here. So in order to discuss script call, I have to show you the file that's involved here. Let me do that. Alright, so here we are at the file. So take note of the location. So just change your drive letter to wherever you installed your Age of Empires installation. And what you'll be seeing is a bunch of files. You should be seeing something like constants.xs and xs.txt, but this one, I don't know, maybe this is from a mod, I'm not sure. But what you have to do is you have to create your own file, .xs, and inside this file, you will see there's this, well, you have to put your XS script. So if you know XS scripting, then good for you. You can definitely call that script. You can use it as a condition or as an effect, depends. This makes it very flexible and it gives you a lot of options on how you want the scenario to play out. But here I'm just using a very simple example. So you know what, you can even ignore this one. This is a test script. If you see this, for all those non-programmer guys, this means a comment, so it means this line is irrelevant. But what's important is this one. Basically what I'm doing is, so this is a function and I set the function to a boolean, which means yes or no, true or false. So I can use the result of this function as a condition to whether it's true or false. So it's a very simple boolean I created. I just commanded it to, you know, just return true. So this is the name of the function. I named it verify. You can name it whatever you want. So when we go back to our Age of Empires, one important thing is you have to go to map here and you have to put the file name of your script. In our case, I named it c1.xs. So you just have to put c1, no need to put xs. As long as you put it in the right directory, there's no need to specify the full path, because that's the specific directory that the game scanned. So once you have that here, you can go to triggers and can call a function from here. So for example, the function we want is verify. So I can just put the function here, verify, with semicolon, and you can click here or anywhere else. If there is a problem with your script, it's gonna show red and there's gonna be an error message. So let me demonstrate that. Let's remove the semicolon here, which makes it the wrong syntax. So if I type verify, see, Age of Empires throws an error, could not parse the code for verify function, and that's because I destroyed the function by removing the semicolon. So let me put that back. So that should fix it. And so verify, if we call verify, we basically get the value of true. So let's test that. Alright. So you can see here that the condition was recognized as true. And if we change we change this to false and retest that, see, it doesn't trigger because the condition is false. It's that simple. So as you can see, it ignored this because this is already a separate function because the functions are enclosed in braces, curly braces. So even if you have thousands of functions here, it's just gonna find the function that you specified on the trigger there. And depending on what you want to do, sky's the limit, right? You can do all sorts of if-else, conditionals, operations, all that good stuff, so that you can customize your scenario to your liking. Now, you may have I think, well, as of writing or as of making this video, there are lots of documentation telling you to use void, but notice that I used bool, which is boolean type, and that's because if you're gonna use it as a condition, void won't work because void basically isn't expected to return a value, but boolean is what condition would expect because boolean is true or false. You have to evaluate whether a condition is true or false. That's why I set that to boolean type. Now, another interesting thing is, for some reason, if I put this exact text here on script call, I'm just gonna fix some yeah, and that's syntactically correct. Right, okay, so let's take out this script file name. Notice, so that should prevent the scenario from reading this file. I'm just gonna put that here. So the script call is no longer throwing an error, so I have this. Let's see what happened. Look at that, it displayed Lahir wishes to kill something, though I never, and it does. Can you hear the background sound? That's right, that's the trigger. It's like it repeatedly tries to execute the trigger. I have no idea why that happens. I mean, it sort of doesn't really make sense to put this as a condition. Maybe as an effect, yes, but there you have it. I mean, it is what it is, right? So just, I won't go too much into explaining what this is, but as you can see, it displayed in the chat the Lahir wishes to kill something, which I stored in a variable with type string. And for some reason, if you use the excess chat data, by the way, is a function, a native function, meaning you don't have to define it separately. The game knows about it. So if you're gonna use excess chat data and you're gonna do a variable, then you have to put in the double quotes first for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, it happened. Yeah. So for script call, preferably you put it in a file because it's better. I think it's better that way. It's cleaner. If you have any changes to the script, then you just have to change the file. And that should be it, I think. Yeah, I think we covered all the conditions, and I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments and let me know if, you know, for any other questions. Watch out for my next videos where I'll be discussing the rest. I'm anticipating that I have to do 2 more videos to cover all of the conditions. And then afterwards we can go and discuss the effects this time. So I hope you learned something new. I hope I lessened the time that you had to go on the internet searching for what this condition does or how to use a script call, so on and so forth. So thanks for watching, and see you on the next video.